Hi. Now, many of you have commented about the rhythm section on the RC5 and the RC500. Some of you use different machines, some of you don't like the rhythms on this, and some of you do things like beatboxing. I myself tend not to use the rhythm section on these machines, and I'm here to tell you that I'm wrong. Now, we tend to start using rhythm sections just for a bit of practice, but when it comes down to live gigs, unless you're using something really dedicated like a TUBEBUDDY, I personally create beatbox noises in the moment. But the 5 series, the 5 and the 500 have got a trick up their sleeve. This is incredibly useful, and it's going to help you nail that first loop that you need every single time. Now, let me show you why.
Okay, so for this example, we have the RC5. I've got that plugged into the system so you can hear it. Let's just have a listen to the rhythm. It's on a blank memory, which is memory number 20. Now, you might not want to use all of that. Maybe the drums are a bit too harsh, but you do want to use the kick drum, or you want to create the kick drum instead of using like a metronome or a click, which is in there as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on memory, and we're going to scroll across one to rhythm. A quick pro tip, if you want to get straight into the rhythm menu, just hold down the on-off button for 2 seconds and you go straight in anyway. So I'm going to use the first rhythm that is here, which is called Simple Beat 1. I'm not going to change anything with that specifically, and we're going to stay with the studio kit and in 4/4 for this example. But what I want you to do is keep scrolling, and when you get past the fill area, which is fill on, and that's for the variation A and B, you'll get to part number 1. Each drum beat, no matter which kit you use, has 4 parts. It has part 1, which is the kick drum, has part 2, which is the snare, it has part 3, which is normally the hi-hats, and then part 4 is either cymbals or crashes. What we're going to do is we're going to only have part 1 on. So we're going to turn part 2 off, and we're just going to switch that over. Part 3 off, and by default on the RC5 and 500, part 4 is already off. So we're just going to leave that the way it is. Now let's get out of here, and let's have a listen to the rhythm again with just part 1. So yeah, it's just the kick drum, but that might be all you need. Or you might just want the kick drum and the hi-hat, but you don't want that snare yet. Let's turn that over as well. So let's hold that down. Let's go back over to where we found all our parts. Part 1 is on. We'll leave part 2 as off. Let's turn on part 3 and leave part 4 off. And let's have a listen to that instead. This is a great way of personalizing the beat for your loop. Now remember, the RC5 and the RC500 have 99 memories. What you could potentially do is select this right into the memory, have the right BPM for the right song. And then this is a great starting point to get that loop in time perfectly. Then if you want to add in your own snare, of course you could beatbox it, or if you've got your own machine or you've got your own sounds to add into the loop, you could do that on top. Now at this point, don't forget to write this to the memory.
Now I'm going to show you 2 tips for this, but before we get going, if you're creating music, you might want to get it out there in the world. And that's where our sponsor today comes in, which is DistroKid. DistroKid is a distribution company where you give your songs to them, you keep 100% of the royalties, and they push it out to all the online stores and streaming sites around the world. Now, other distribution companies charge you per release, where DistroKid has a completely different format, and they only charge you 1 price per year, which is incredibly cheap. It's $19.99. But I'm going to make that even cheaper for you by giving you 7% off your first annual membership. It's on the screen now. There's also a link in the description box below. DistroKid have some really cool things. For example, they have promo cards. So as soon as you put a release out there, it generates a promo card for you to use in things like Instagram stories. What's really clever is your song's actually going to go to Instagram, so you can actually select your song for the promo of your song. And guess what? When people watch that, you're going to get some money. DistroKid also have a couple of things like hyperfollow pages. So again, you release your song, it creates one website. You don't have to pay anything extra, and you could just send people to that website and they can choose whether they use Spotify or Apple Music or Deezer or Pandora or Amazon Music or any of the others out there. So click the link that's in the description box below, the one that's on screen right now. That'll save you 7% of your first annual membership, no matter which tier you go for, because they have 3 different tiers, whether you're a single artist or you're a complete label, and start distributing your music today. And a quick thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring this video.
The really clever part is when we go to set up the loop. Let's go into memory and go into the loop itself. what we can do is now we could change the measure. So therefore you don't have to worry about pressing it a second time. It'll just get to so many bars and then repeat itself. It's always set at 3, but you could actually turn around and say what you want it to be. So we want it to be 4 bars long. Then all we need to do is actually tap on tempo once. Let's change that so it's at 110 beats per minute, and then we can get out of there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write all this to the memory now. So we just press these two together. It says write. We click it on memory 20, and that's executed. It's still dark blue, so that means there's no loop there, but what you've got there is saved. So if I go to memory 19 and press play, we're back to our normal. We go back to 20. We're at 110 beats per minute. Now the really clever part is if I go into record, what I can do is I can even have an intro. So we can go into memory again, go into rhythm, and let's have a quick look here. Where we go start loop, we can actually have this as record end, or go before loop, and then the loop stop. We can actually have record end, or you can have off. And if you've got things like an FS7 pedal, then you could use that to maybe control the rhythm separately. So let me give you a demonstration of this and show you what I mean. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to press the record button as if I haven't recorded before. So let's go into this right now. It's not recording at the moment. Now it is. That's 3. And then that's 4. Watch this. I didn't press it. You've got your intro with your kick drum and your hi-hat. Then also you can say how many bars it's going to be. So if you've already predetermined this, you could give it a name, you could call it whatever song it is, and then you can just hit it once. It starts the beat for you. And then when you hit it a second time, it's going to start recording those 4 bars that you told it to record. Then you can just leave it and it'll just go into play mode. If you want to make it even faster than that, you can tell it to go into overdub mode straight away, so you can then add on the layers that you want. Now it has actually gone white because there is a recording there. That recording is blank, as you can see. I've got nothing plugged in here today, but I just wanted to show you that it can record for 4 bars and then go into automatic play mode without me touching it once you've done this little setup. And then what you can do is, of course, if we just get out of there and go to 19, then go to 20, it's gone back to dark blue, but it's still got all the preferences that we have saved. So that loop is ready to go again. If you're a gigging musician, this is huge because then you don't have to save the loop afterwards. You don't have to write it to the memory every time. You just write the settings that you need, and then you just keep going. So my next tip is actually taking this one stage further. So imagine we've got memory number 20, and then basically we go to 21. So if you just want the drums to be the same, what we can do is we can write this, and we can write it to the memory, and we're actually going to write it to number 21. So everything we've got on 20 is now on 21. I hope that makes sense. But we're going to make a change. So on memory number 21, which is now called memory 20, I need to change that, by the way. But just to confuse you, look at the big number. Don't look at the small number. That's just the name of the track. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into the rhythm section, and we're going to change this over. So this is now variation B. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn everything back on, all the parts. So let's turn the snare back on, and I'm even going to turn on part 4 as well. So let's get out of there and let's write that to the memory as well. So let's recap. On memory 20, we've got this. 4 bars, 110 BPM, simple beat number 1 with part 1 and part 3 on. Let's go to 21. Exactly the same BPM, exactly the same number of bars to record, but this time what we've done is we've got parts 2 and parts 4 kicking in. This could be your potential beat machine for maybe a verse and a chorus. Now the reason I've done this is because if I went from variation A to variation B on memory number 20, it won't turn on part 2 and part 4. They still remain off. So if I want part 2 and 4 to kick in, I'm going to have to do that on a different memory. But memory number 21 could be the chorus part of this song. And then if you had something again like an FS7 pedal or an FS6, and you've got 2 buttons there, you could go memory up and memory down very, very easily. Or if you had a MIDI controller like a Morningstar MC8, you could actually program it to go program up and program down, but then you could also control the rhythm section independently as well. So I've just switched it up to the RC500 and we're on memory number 20, just for consistency. Now this time I've actually plugged the microphone directly into the looper just so we can do a little bit of looping and give you an example. But before we do that, let's set this loop up. So I'm going to go over to tempo and we can see it's 120 beats per minute. Let's move that down to 110, just like we did with the RC5. Let's hold down on the on-off button and then that'll get us straight into here, into the rhythm menu. We're going to go exactly the same way. Simple beat number 1. We're going to be on variation A. We're going to be on the studio kit 4/4 and then change the start from loop start over to before loop. And then the stop, it can actually be loop stop or record end or off. I'll just leave it a loop stop for now. And then we're going to go over to the fill is on, part 1 on, that's fine. Part 2, we're going to have off, part 3 on, and part 4 is off. Okay, so let's get that written and we'll write that to the memory. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it again. I'm going to write it to memory number 21. Remember, look at the big number, not the smaller one. So let's go back to memory number 20. Let's just turn the rhythm on. Let's have a listen. So that's what we want. Let's go up to 21. So on memory number 21, it's exactly the same. So we want to make some variation. Let's change this over and we're going to go over to, let's do variation B, why not? And at the same time, we're going to go over to part number 1, part number 2 on, and part 4 on as well. Remember to write it to the memory. So let's go back over to memory number 20. Let's play it. Great. And then we go to memory number 21. Now, just like the RC5, I'm going to set up the loop to be 4 measures long on both. And then I'm going to do a little bit of recording. I'm going to save that loop and then move over to number 21 and we can chop and change between the two. So to do this, let's go into memory, let's go into recording, and let's go all the way to the end where it says loop length and it says auto. So we're going to change that over. So I'm going to put that at 4. Let's write that to the memory. And then on 21, we need to do exactly the same for the loop length to be from auto to 4. Okay, I think we're set. Let's give this a whirl. Let's start on memory number 20, and then I'm going to move up to number 21. So we are not recording right now, and the reason you know that is because this is flashing. Let's go. Okay, so I've recorded just this little humming sound on memory number 20. Let's write that to the memory. So let's record onto number 21. Remember, the rhythm is already armed. When I press this, it's going to go into the beat, but it's not recording. It's just armed, and I'll press it again to record my loop. So let's write that to memory. Now, of course, you don't have to do it like this. This is just pure example. But now what we've got is we've got 2 different rhythms between the 2 memories, but it's actually part of the same song. So. That's a 21. Let's go back down to 20. of course, again, it goes without saying that if you have an external pedal like an FS6, FS7, you could control the rhythm at your feet, or if you had a MIDI controller, you could control all of this with every single button that you own. So the only downside is that you can't actually write the loop to the memory while it's playing. But this was not the example of this. The example of it was all about the rhythm section, because if you went to variation B of the same rhythm, it won't turn the parts on and off. So this is a great way you can get variation with the parts as well as the variation of the beat itself.
Finally, if you want some pro looping tips from me, I've got a PDF you can download. It's on the website, just go to johnpaulmusic.co.uk, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see the link for it there. So once you've mastered the rhythm section and the bits that you want and what memories you want it on, you might want to consider where it's being routed to, whether it's going to be routed to a mixer or it's going through an amp, and also compared to your other stuff, your vocals, your guitar, your keyboard, whatever you're plugging in. So if that's the case, have a look at this video over here, and I go into all the different routing options you can do on an RC500. It also applies to the RC5 as well.